Hello, Sinclair.
Hello, VRL. Good to see you.
Good to see you, and thank you for accepting to be our guest at Expat Stories.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So, in a summary, let's start with your expat experience. How many years you've been living, working abroad? Let's start from this point, if you may.
I first, really from 2000, up to that point, I really hadn't been abroad very much. I'd been up to the UK. So around, no, it's a bit later, 2005 odd, I came to Romania. And then I was based here for 9 years, but working, first of all, in Malaysia with a number of projects, and then after that in Saudi Arabia. But my base at that time for the next 9 years was in Bucharest. And then I moved to Saudi Arabia for 4 years also, and worked with Saudi Aramco. So that's my second expat experience. After which I had a year in the UK, and now I've recently just come back to Romania again.
Okay, so how did you feel the cultural, I don't know, impressions from the very beginning? Was it a shock? Was it easy? How was it for you, Sinclair?
I've always enjoyed traveling, and I've always enjoyed sitting down with people on a one-to-one from different cultures. And really it came out from a journey I did as a student. I was a late student. I was actually in my 30s as a student and traveled around Eastern Europe, and enjoyed just sitting down with people from Hungary or Czech Republic, and of course eventually Romania, and just finding out about the different countries. So I was obviously aware that there was going to be a cultural difference. The curiosity was being what it was going to be, and adapting to it. I don't think it was a shock. I think obviously one has to work out what the cultural differences are and try and then adapt to that. I mean, for example, I think in Romania, it's sometimes about calling a spade, shall I say. They can be very direct, and, you know, that's fine. Sometimes someone who's not aware of the culture may interpret it as being rude, but once you actually get to know them, you realize that it's not rudeness at all. It's just simply as communication difference.
Yeah. On the other side, in Saudi Arabia, I think people are more cautious and prudent in terms of having difficult and direct conversations, right? Is that true? Did you feel it that way?
Yes, I think most of my experience with Arabs was probably more on the work front. And in a way, it was far easier at work, talking about something you instantly had a connection with, which actually wasn't necessarily about family. You tend to start conversations about family, but they tend to be fairly superficial. And then we get into work, you were trying to give support, trying to help find out what their issues were. So you had an easier way to develop a connection there. But when I was living in Saudi Arabia, I was living in the Pakistani quarter, where there are a lot of different nationalities, and actually not that many Arabic people live there. So my experience there was probably more from people from India, Pakistan, and maybe Asia when I was there. But I remember going to an Arabic wedding, for example, once, and that was really a moment when I could get immersed in the culture a bit, and sitting cross-legged and eating camel with your fingers was fantastic fun, actually. And so that for the first time, you could really have some more in-depth conversations about what it was like to live there.
Yeah, I guess one of the most common questions expat we receive is how is it? And probably you have your own version of answering how is it, right? So coming back, if we put together all the international experiences that you had or you are having, what would you say? How is it to live, and how is it to work abroad?
It opens up so many different perspectives that you haven't really met before. You're dealing with challenges you never even thought of before. You're dealing in an environment you didn't even know about. I remember, for example, the British are fine about queuing. We're fond of queuing, for example. That is anathema to any Romanian, as far as I can work out. And I remember queuing up to get some documents for my car. And I was there about 1.5 hours early. I forget quite why. And there were 2 queues. There were a small room, 2 windows. And sure enough, I was number 2 or 3 in the queue. And about 20 people behind me, same thing on the other one. It was a lovely, orderly queue right until the moment when the door things opened, whereupon everyone rushed forward. I lost my place. I completely lost my temper and shouting this, that, and the other, whereupon a group of Romanians just fell about laughing around me and thought the whole thing was absolutely hilarious. And I laughed as well after a bit, you know, and you thought this is just how it is. And you have got to laugh in those type of situations. How it is, it's opening up perspectives. It's enjoying the fact that people have such different lives and finding out about those people. They have different personalities, different cultures, and it's so rewarding to find those cultures. But it can also be lonely. You are often on your own. I love meeting other Romanians. My feeling is I'm in Romania to be with Romanians. But you know, at the end of the day, you are an expat. You're from a different country. You know, it's not the same as an instant connection that you would get from someone where you know the culture, you know what's going on, however, you know, brilliant and friendly they are. So there will be times when, as an expat, you are lonely. And I think you have to be able to deal with that, certainly, as well as have the fun times.
How do you deal with loneliness? Some people say it's about objectives. Some people say it's about learning. Some people it's about, I don't know, personal projects. How do you deal with loneliness?
Well, first of all, I'm someone who actually doesn't mind being alone all that much. I can go 2 or 3 days, and then after 2 or 3 days, I need some company. So if I was ever in that situation, and it doesn't usually last as much as that, there are places you can go and places you can talk to and have conversations with people in pubs or usually in pubs or, you know, or
social environments.
Social. Yeah, so in social environments that you can find in people you know. And I think for me, it was just getting out there, going for a walk, going around the town, going to shop, going into a coffee shop, maybe you haven't been there before, getting some interaction going, trying out your Romanian, something like that. It wouldn't necessarily be people you know, but it would be giving you a stimulation that, you know, the worst thing is you just simply sit at home when you're feeling that way inclined and you're feeling negative. The worst thing to do is just simply sit there, get out and about and go meet some people, and then you never know what will happen.
How about the language of the country you live in, be it Romania, be it Saudi Arabia? Do you find that must have? Do you find it, I don't know, nice to have?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Funny.
I mean, well, I must admit, I didn't learn Arabic while I was in Saudi Arabia. I was there for 4 years. Yeah. And I do find learning languages a challenge, to be honest. But I do speak Romanian, and that gives me a huge amount of pleasure, particularly when you're with people who are not in, you know, out in the countryside. And I have good friends in a place called, it's a comuna, which is like a big village, called Comuna Cumpăna, which is near Constanța near the Black Sea coast. And my friends there, we speak Romanian, even if my Romanian isn't that great. And the family I know, a guy called Rika, he's slightly older than myself, he doesn't speak any English. So everything is around playing table and speaking Romanian, and that's fine. Table is, of course, backgammon.
So what I'm taking from your answer is sometimes it's a necessity because you need to move around, and sometimes it's, you know, it's increasing the quality of life and the intensity of your conversations with the people in the country you're living. Is that correct?
I think it's so much more rewarding if you can speak the language, particularly somewhere like Romania, where not everyone speaks English, although I must admit, in the last 10, 15 years, it's grown enormously. But even so, out in the country, there's nothing more frustrating than wanting to have a good conversation with someone and being unable to do it. And provided you can speak a few words, you can speak a few sentences, that can get you going. So it's the fun of being in a foreign country is just enhanced 300-fold if you can speak the language. And I always did try and do it from the start with mixed success, possibly, but then that gave them something to laugh about, so that's all right as well.
Yeah, if I may, what I found about speaking the language in a different country, it's also a sign of social respect and integration in the community in that country, and you earn a lot of respect from the people you are interacting if you try to speak the language. So was it in your case as well demonstrated that you are willing to learn and you put effort?
And especially with English, where it's an assumption you should speak English, if you like, even if you don't. People would apologize for saying, oh, my English is not very good. And my response would be, well, I'm in Romania. It's me who should be speaking Romanian. And I always felt the respect clearly was important for something like that. And that was always my message. You know, it's up to me to be able to communicate with you. You shouldn't have to speak English with me. If you do, great. It can unfortunately make us lazy in not bothering to speak the language, but that's a shame if that is the case. But yeah, I think that respect is important, especially for a native English speaker where we just have it easy. And yes, it does help, but also with bureaucracy. And certainly it's got better recently, but Romania 10 or 15 years ago was horrendous with bureaucracy. And you had no idea why you needed a form or why you needed this. And to actually be able to, and 10 to 1, the people, the clerks and the people who were in the government offices couldn't speak English. And so that really, it was essential in those sort of cases.
While you're living abroad for so many years, did you have any doubts or second thoughts? Like, I'm not sure if I will make it. I will have to go back to my fellow Brits or English people or whatever. Did you have this kind of thoughts?
There was one moment only, and it actually happened before I decided to, before I actually made the move. It's about 4 months before I knew I was going to live in Romania. I'd made the decision, but I was visiting Cumpănar, and all the roads at that point, they weren't made up. It was just simply mud tracks and everywhere and so on.
The factory.
It was, I think, October, and it was freezing cold. And I was walking down the street with my friends. It was pouring with rain. I felt cold. I felt miserable. And I just thought, what in heaven's name am I doing coming here in 4 months' time? And I remember thinking to myself, come on, sort yourself out. You can, there is a positive attitude to that. It'll be great, etc. But there was just that one moment. And then we went to Constanța or something, and it was fine. But it was the only moment, and that actually happened before. I never once I'd actually moved, I never, ever had any doubt. And I think I was lucky that I think it's, if you can get into the rhythm of the country, I love that phrase. Actually was, I've forgotten a place I did live in, and that was in Northern Ireland, in Derry or Londonderry. And I enjoyed it there very much. And I remember an older Irish consultant saying to me once, you've got the rhythm of the country. And to me, that was always one of those wonderful compliments that you could get. And I think back to Romania and coming back, and why is the reason that you don't feel you've made any mistake, or you do feel comfortable, you don't have those doubts. It's when, even if things are going wrong, or things are not easy, you're in the rhythm. You understand why things are going wrong. With bureaucracy as it is, yeah, so be it. It's part of the rhythm, and you just adapt to that rhythm.
I think this is such a wonderful metaphor. You catch the rhythm of the country, of the place you live in, and I think some people reported or told me that there are some phases any expat is going through. So, for example, the first phase would be something like a little bit of fear, a little bit of hanging in, then learning, adapting, adjusting maybe to the culture, to the situation. And then maybe there will be a phase of cruising combined with enjoyment. until you get to the last phase when you say, I have to end that assignment, or I have to move on, or anything like that. So have you, I don't know, traversed all these phases or something similar that you can share with me?
I don't think it worked for me in that way, because I didn't come as part of my job. I came because I wanted to come. And it was an impulsive decision, which then I look back on, think, yeah, it is the right decision. So when I arrived, I was also lucky in knowing this Romanian family who I know very well, and known about 10 years, I think, or 10 or 15 years already. So that was quite a comfort, that I knew I could go down to Constance, and I knew I had a sort of base. So there's always fear, particularly when you're trying to navigate bureaucracy, or trying to navigate the taxes, or trying to navigate this, that, and the other. I was involved in buying property, and then you're worried that will property be, will it be okay? Are you going to come across some horrendous reason? So they were
administrative challenges.
Yeah, they were practical fears. They weren't fears about being in the country itself, if you see. They were just the fact you're in an uncertain place, you don't know the rules, and you've got to try and adapt to the rules. But it wasn't fear of being in the country in the sense of, this is a new country, I'm unknown, I don't know what to expect. I had actually visited Romania quite a few times, in fact, so maybe I think that probably helped. So, no, I think I probably cruised from day one.
With a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, that probably is an exaggeration, actually, thinking about it. But I've certainly felt comfortable. And of course, the longer you're in, and once you've bought the place, or you've got your accommodation and everything's settled, things still, of course, do become easier. And therefore, I guess that's where cruising comes in a way. So, but I haven't felt that fear, or not fear of being in a country, concerned sometimes. What does this mean, or why have I got this letter, or who's ANAF, which is the tax authority? What are they? Well, what does that mean, especially when you don't know the language? But I mean, those are practical fears. They're not fears of travel per se.
Yeah, I hear you. Even if I'm local, I know what you mean about the concern of interacting with administrative institutions or tax authorities. It's not always the most pleasant thing to do, but it is what it is.
I always wondered how people dealt with shopping trolleys in the UK, when you have to put that coin in and bring the shopping trolley out, and there's no instruction on anything. I just thought, if I'd been coming from a foreign country and come to the UK and I had to go shopping at a supermarket, I'm sure it'd take me at least half an hour to work out.
Speaking of embarrassment and funny moments, what would be your top moments or embarrassing moments you ever lived in all the countries?
And so on. But I remember I would go, I don't know if it's embarrassing or funny particularly, but I remember I would go to the local church quite a bit. And actually my family are quite musical. And as you know, in the Romanian church, there's a cantarettes. And I read music perfectly well. And I was talking to this guy, and he said, well, why don't you join me up at the front? And then you can sing along with me. So I just watched at the moment, and then I did. I sort of sang along with him, and eventually actually harmonized with him, which was quite fun. And this so this would be quite a regular thing, that I would go on the services. And then one moment, he was ill, and there was like a bit of fracas, and all I was doing was reading the music, and someone suddenly said, well, you can do it. You're the cantor, you be the cantarettes. You've done this many times. I said, no, there's no way I could possibly, be part of the service in Cumpănar and run the position of being a cantarettes. So that was a moment, if you like, which had to be dealt with fairly quickly. Funny moments. I'll have to think about that one a bit more.
Thank you for sharing that experience of, embarrassing a little bit, or overcoming your fear to be on the stage in a different country, foreign country, in a foreign language, I guess.
It was more about the fear of doing something which I had no idea. At that time, I didn't even know what the words meant. I was reading and singing the words, but I didn't actually know what they meant. So I wouldn't have been the right person.
I'm sure you did very well. So, mashallah, how the Arab friends are saying. So God bless. Excellent. So now on the learning and the wisdom part of our conversation, what would be your top advice, or the most important learnings that you might want to pass to somebody who is considering moving abroad, moving outside?
I think you would have to give it a go and enjoy it. Go out with an open mind, go and listen to as much as you can, if possible. So meet the local people, listen to them. If you're able to overcome the language barrier, listen to them, enjoy what they say, and get involved as much as possible in the local country. Don't go to somewhere like Romania or Saudi Arabia or Malaysia and come back just having mixed with your own kind. Come back having experienced some of the events and the things which made that country on a personal level. Be involved with locals, be involved, get to know people, attend events, like if you get birthday parties or weddings or what have you, go and enjoy them, and look and just enjoy being in somewhere new. It's the sense of being involved. That's what I think is important to me. And I think the thing I would say is don't get frustrated. Frustrations will happen, and that is part of that journey. And accept those frustrations, even laugh at those frustrations as they happen. For me, was around bureaucracy, and at least it'll be a story that you can tell your family and friends when you get back.
Building stories to tell back to your family, to your friends, and maybe to yourself.
Indeed.
So, Sinclair, is there a specific moment or a specific event that you remember as one of the most intense situations or events that you'll always remember, maybe?
Well, I don't know about intense, but I do remember a moment, and that was when we organized a run across, so they called it, in favor of the Tubular Myopathy Trust. And a friend of mine, Anne Lennox, her son sadly died from that. And what we wanted to do was raise money for a UK charity. So many things go the other way, UK feeling sorry for Romania. I said, well, let's actually see if we can raise money from Romania to give to a UK charity. And we organized actually 3 runs for different age groups. So the first age group, I think, was around age 7 to 10, then you had teenagers, then you had the groups and so forth. And the idea, what I wanted to do was align it with a 10-kilometer run in the UK. So people said, yeah, it sounds a great idea. You'll need permission from the school, from the sports hall, from the mayoress's area. So the first person I went around to see was the sports hall, and they said, yeah, fine, but 10 kilometers is a bit much. I think you want to make it 8. Well, it doesn't really align with the 10 kilometers, but I guess we can do that. But okay, we'll make it 8, I suppose. I went along to the school. They said, fantastic idea. Great, really in for it. 8's far too much. You can't have for 8 kilometers. We have to make it 5. I said, well, we're getting short, but if that's what it takes to get your support, we'll make it 5. And of course, you can guess what happened next, that I went round to the mayoress's office. She said exactly what we want, but it's far too hot. No one can run more than 2 kilometers. So we'll have to make 2 kilometers. So we ended up having this huge event, which was for a run, which probably took everyone about sort of 15 minutes at most to complete. And it was an event where we had fireworks and a singer from Boney M, who happened to be living in Romania at the time. And one of my favorite pictures in the world is the start of the run, which was started off by a police car, of course. Someone else had organized that. And it's about 30 or 40 kids from the Comuna Cumpăna setting off on this run. And you've got the people in the front who were totally committed. You've got the laggards at the back who didn't really want to do it, but their parents had told them. And every single expression tells a story. It's my favorite picture in the world. And incidentally, we then had a competition for the flag, for school kids to design the flag. The girl who won it started the race, and as she put down the flag flew off and fell to the ground, and the whole race started. So it started in chaos, and somehow we got through it. And it really was a fantastic event, and I enjoyed every minute.
So thank you very much, Sinclair.
That's okay.
It was a pleasure having you. I appreciate the time we spent together.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. All the best.